In the book of Philippians, Paul is writing to help us gain a perspective, particularly perspective in the midst of suffering. And he wants us to have a perspective of joy. And I specifically want to draw your attention to verse 29, where he writes, "For it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him, since you are going through the same struggle you saw I had and now hear that I still have." So it's good to just remember what Paul has gone through, how he has suffered. He was flogged. That's in Acts 16. He was stoned. That's in chapter 14 of Acts. He suffered a venomous snake bite. That's recorded in Acts 27. And he talks about being shipwrecked multiple times in 2 Corinthians. And he was arrested and imprisoned for sharing the gospel. And he writes this letter to the church at Philippi from that prison. He urges them, even though they're under a Roman government, to conduct themselves as if they're citizens of heaven, which may involve some suffering, he says. I specifically want to draw your attention to the word granted that's mentioned in verse 29. It's actually more like the word graced, which I'm not even sure is actually a word. But when you read it that way, it reads differently. "For you have been graced on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him." He's saying that the journey of Christ will involve suffering. And it's a grace, I believe, because it moves us beyond mere belief in Christ into a true connection with Jesus, where we share in his sufferings. You may be familiar with two French impressionists, Henri Matisse and Auguste Renoir. They actually became very close friends near the end of Renoir's life. They only knew each other very briefly at the beginning of the 20th century, and despite their 30-year age difference, they actually grew quite close. And Renoir's health began to fail, and the doctors eventually confined him to his home, and Matisse began to visit him daily. Renoir was almost paralyzed by arthritis. His hands became very, very crippled, and yet he continued to paint at his easel despite this ailment. And it's rumored that one afternoon Matisse was watching his friend paint, fighting torturous pain with each movement and stroke of his brush. And finally Matisse blurted out, "Auguste, why do you continue to paint when you are in such agony?" And Renoir didn't look up right away. His eyes was fixed on the canvas in concentration, and then eventually he answered and said, "The beauty remains. The pain passes." Being a citizen of heaven is about remembering that the pain will pass. The suffering is temporary. Now that doesn't make it any less difficult to get through while it's happening to us here on earth. But it does give us perspective. And Paul's perspective is one of joy. And I think even one of beauty. The beauty and joy of knowing Christ, eyes focused on him. The beauty and the joy of the journey we get to take with Jesus. We're walking through the book of Philippians together as a church, and I hope that you'll join us as we talk about perspective, we talk about joy, and we even talk about suffering a little bit. Because one of the questions I've been asking myself is, what is my perspective today? Is it on what's right in front of me? Or are my eyes on Jesus?